Good morning. So I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by David Rose this morning. David, thank you very much for giving up your time.
Thank you, Suzie.
For the benefit of everyone listening, I'm just going to quickly sort of set the scene. So you're new into a role. Many congratulations. So Senior Director, International Digital Marketing Technology at Papa John's. Most incredible pizza quick service restaurant business. So absolutely delighted for you on that.
Thank you very much, Suzie. Yes, I'm 2 weeks in, really loving it. Fantastic to be back at work with a great team and traveling a little bit as well, but I'm really getting to grips of what the scope of the new role is. So yeah, really excited and buzzing at the moment.
Excellent. So Dave's been kind enough to join this morning, just really to share your experience. So to set the scene, you came and joined one of our breakfast events in London in the summer, and that for you was the start of what was your sort of 4-month gap between your previous role and this new role. And you've been kind enough this morning to be willing to share some of the learnings from that experience. I know you approached it with a really organised fashion, but you said you'd come and share some hints and tips about how you approach the gap or the in-between period that I think would be really beneficial for people right now.
Great. Yes, very happy to, Suzie, and in particular because 4 months ago I was in a position that I'm sure many people watching this and some of your prospective candidates are. I left my last role. I was a CMO equivalent at one of the NHS organisations looking after blood donation in England, but I was quite keen to get back into the retail and food sector, which is kind of where my past experience was. And people can look at my profile and see I've had quite a varied and broad career. So I bring quite a breadth of experience and specialisms, both largely within the marketing sector, but straddling both digital as well as commercial and sales elements as well. So I left my role, I think it was end of July, and did take the chance to have a lovely holiday with family. My wife's a school teacher, so we were able to have a few more weeks off than usual. But then really coming back into it and thought I'd really apply myself to how and where to find my next role. And yes, Suzie, thank you. I had a wonderful invite to a breakfast. And first of all, I'd say a first tip, never say no to a networking opportunity. Really great. You've got the time to spare now if you are at home wondering what to do next. And really valuable to meet other people in your situation. Sometimes I think it can be a bit lonely if you're stuck at home not knowing what to do and who to turn to. And many people like me, I've never not been employed in a full-time job. So it can take a little bit getting used to. And really great at that breakfast, both meeting other people and seeing what they're up to, but also thanks to you, Suzie, a few great tips to consider how to spend the next few months. I was kind of readying myself. It would take a few months, I think, to find the right role, both because they come up and you're kind of rolling a bit of the dice on the opportunities, but also, recruitment processes at director level and above can take several months. So you both have to be ready for that process, but also keep yourself busy so that you don't come across as a little bit desperate or needy in those moments. So I thought I'd structure my time off in 3 areas, really, making sure I put time to job hunt. And there's a bit of a administration of running the rhythm of the week, checking the job boards, looking at LinkedIn, checking all your sort of prompts that you've set up. There's also networking, calling those people you haven't touched base with a couple of years. I've had some good friends advising me, have your green, orange and red list around who would just pick up the phone to answer you. Go for those orange leads who you haven't spoken to for a couple of years. Have a chat. People are very willing to speak. It does take a bit of courage sometimes to start doing that, reaching out. It's a moment of vulnerability, but lean into it because it is really worth it. And then, of course, if you've got headhunter connections like you, Suzie, obviously have a chat. It's great to reconnect and get a state of the market in that respect. The second thing I did, and great tip from your breakfast meeting, was to look at some formal education. I haven't done formal education since university, so it was really interesting both to lean into that side and see where I could perhaps fill in a gap that I hadn't done some work on, but also I think reconfirm what perhaps I'd just learned in practice, but less in theory. So I did 2 courses because I sort of, I could see I had maybe 2 to 3 days free a week to lend towards this. So I did Mark Ritson's mini MBA, which I've just finished. I think I've actually got a grade waiting in my inbox. So I don't know it yet, but hopefully it's a good grade. So that was really good at just reconfirming, I guess, a little bit of what I know and I've learned over 15 years, but also giving me some terminology and updated case studies that were quite good at just prompting some thinking. But I also went into something completely new and did one of the executive education courses at Oxford University on artificial intelligence. And this is not around getting into the data science, but it's rather around, as an executive or a sort of, a direct report to an executive, how you would consider and should consider how artificial intelligence is going to impact both you as an individual, your organization, and of course the sector. And marketing is seeing huge impact. And I'm sure many of you and candidates are testing yourself on ChatGPT, but really interested in getting familiar with some of the tools like Jasper and some of the organizations that are offering organizational change. It's great to just know these tools are out there and start to play with them. And, it's using you're updating your own ways of working. But really, the course was fantastic, introducing things like risk and ethics and how you might even approach this in your next job, bringing in and starting to know how to grapple such a changing environment. It was groundbreaking, the course for me. I think of my career as pre-AI, and now it's going to be post-AI. And that's both given me a subject to really grapple with, but also a network that I cannot to say how invaluable it is. I connected deliberately with a lot of marketeers on the course, and we now have a lovely little WhatsApp group, some in similar situations looking for work, some consultants, some in agencies, some in business. And that's really great about giving people a bit of a motivation as well. And then I'd say the third thing I did, lots of people say, use the opportunity to volunteer or give back a little bit. I couldn't find something that was really relevant, and I felt I was really valuable at giving. I mean, you can go and, help out on manual tasks and things like that. But I found, and what's proven to be really helpful, was signing up for the Chartered Institute of Marketing and becoming a formal mentor to obviously a range of lots of enthusiastic younger marketeers who are looking for advice. So I've been mentoring, I think, between 5 and 6 at a time. And I hope to keep those relationships going. It's not too much of a draw on time, but really it does inspires you a little bit by looking at others earlier in their career, and you can offer to give back. It sort of replaces the team you might have been managing in your full-time job. So those are the kind of the 3 areas that I've been focusing on in the last 4 months.
Oh, that is such a great insight, and it's a kind of a bit of a how-to in terms of how to gain value and give value when you're in that kind of in-between period. And I know that will resonate so well with our audience right now, if people are sort of actively looking for roles. And to your point originally on the networking, is if you get those opportunities, take them, because the reassurance of knowing there are other people in the same situation, and just helps with mindset and confidence, I think, which is a really, really important part of that process.
And I say, so my new role I found through networking. So it was coffee with my successor at Starbucks. I used to work at Starbucks. Talking to him, he had been approached by a headhunter. And so I said, why not introduce me to that headhunter? So if I hadn't been, brave, courageous, if you want to call it that, in terms of reaching out, even to old work sort of 2 times ago, the opportunity, I wouldn't have found that opportunity in that respect. So the job boards, I think, are important, so that you can feel the rhythm of the market, and you can see the sort of roles are coming up. You get to understand the language and the terminology that might be updating if you haven't rewritten your CV for a while. But I definitely say networking is probably the area of the best return on that investment in terms of a future opportunity.
Excellent. And we'll share links to the courses that you've recommended as well. And out of interest, did you have a plan B? I mean, that's fabulous that you have secured a role, and obviously sort of this side of Christmas, but there'll be a lot of people listening right now where if they haven't secured something, it may be well into the new year. Any tips if that in-between period sort of extends beyond what people had thought it might be?
Yeah, so I think it's essential to always have a plan B, and I mean like a micro plan B if you're in a recruitment process. still work on the next job. Assume you won't get the role, to give you the courage to make sure you've got a backup in it. So typically, I would say I was probably always in a recruitment process. But if I got knocked and didn't get through, didn't get the offer, there was always something immediately I could pivot my enthusiasm into something else. So we all go through a bit of a change. You know, rejection is not nice. And sometimes you have some dark days where, you know, you look to those friends to help sort of G you up again. So if you've always got an opportunity that's then like 2 days later, right, let me fill in my CV for this one. Let's me start researching the company. You can pick yourself up quite quickly. So there's always a plan B, I think, in your main effort. But I was coming to about 4 months, and obviously coming to Christmas. If I hadn't got this role, I was starting to think around interim work, consulting work. And that's where certainly the networks, you can start to pick up some opportunities, or really start to test around some of the recruiters you might be looking for, do both permanent and interim roles. So always, I think, in the conversations I would have with recruiters, it would always be looking for this type of permanent role. But if you've got any interim work, I'm also very interested in that. I would say, though, like when you're thinking around CVs and covering letters, interim work probably needs some redesign. I did have a 2-page CV inevitably, but I also had a 1-page CV, which really called out perhaps a couple of unique strengths that people might want to hire me uniquely for, rather than perhaps my whole profile. I obviously didn't have to necessarily use it, but it was there. It was plan B. I was already starting to distribute that, starting to look ahead at what January might need.
That's smart. An interim CV should focus on specialist expertise. So that's smart. That's a really good tip. That's a really good tip. David, thank you. This has been invaluable to our audience. I'm very grateful. You're supremely talented. And I wish you and Papa John's every success for 2024.
Thank you very much, Suzie, and to you and all your candidates as well. Yeah, likewise.
Thank you very much.